everyone, and welcome into Week 10 of DFS. This is the Adjusted Line Play Report presented by Zilla Fantasy Elite. I am your host, Todd Hoffman. You can find myself over on Twitter at ToddZilla1337. You can find Zilla Fantasy Elite on Twitter at Zilla Fantasy. Go ahead and give us a follow over there. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Smash that subscribe button. We'll win some money together on that. If you're listening over on Podbean, give us a follow. Let's go win some money together, folks. This is Week 10 DFS. Let's get this slate underway. We have 11 games on this particular slate this week. And as always, we're going to go from the highest Vegas game total all the way down to the lowest and give you the best plays based on the Adjusted Line Play Report and what kind of things you can exploit here. And we will go straight away into game number 1 on the slate, which is Atlanta at Dallas. We have a 54.5 point Vegas total. Dallas are 8-point favorites in this particular matchup at home. So we're going to start with the Atlanta offense here. Offensive pass protection, number 10. So they are top 10 there. We have a green matchup. Dallas is number 17 in the pass rush on defense. They should not be able to generate a ton of pressure on Atlanta. Atlanta should have plenty of time to pass in this particular matchup, which is good because they're probably going to be down in this game, which means the pass game from Atlanta should be good. We look over at the offensive run blocking for Atlanta, number 27, Dallas 16, so smack dab in the middle there on the adjusted rush yards and defense. Atlanta probably not going to be running the ball that well, so they should have a little bit of time to pass the ball. What does that mean? It's probably going to mean that Pitts will have a solid game. He is kind of their ex-receiver. Even though he's listed as a tight end, he pretty much doesn't line up at tight end ever. And I think he's got about 30 to 40 total snaps this entire season lined up as an actual inline tight end. Otherwise, everything else has been either in the slot or out wide as an ex-wide receiver. So he's the one that gets deep. They're going to have a little bit more time. He's probably going to be a solid fantasy option. The other option is Cordero Patterson. He does get the rushing attempts. He's listed as a running back and getting, 5-6 targets at least every single game. So he's always in play there. Russell Gage, Olamide Zaccheaus, probably not guys that you want in your particular matchup, but Gage has been getting the targets and certainly viable for any sort of redraft in large leagues. Like 14, 16-team leagues, Gage is certainly a viable start this week. Not super interested in the rush game there from Atlanta. On the Dallas side, we get some juicy matchups here. Dallas, number 4 in offensive pass protection. Atlanta, number 31 at generating any sort of sack rate against the quarterback. Super good matchup for Dallas in the pass game. Let's look at that run blocking before we get into this offense too. Number 1 in the offensive run blocking. Atlanta, 19th. And the adjusted rush yards on defense. So Dallas should be able to move the ball very easily against Atlanta. This is in a dome, and I fully expect Dallas to be able to move the ball. The only issue is Tyron Smith, their left tackle there in Dallas, is not going to be playing in this game. That could lead to a little bit of deficiency along the offensive line, but I think these discrepancies are so large that it's not going to really matter. Dallas should have plenty of time to pass the ball and should be able to run the ball with efficiency against Atlanta. So this means Dak Prescott is in play. Ezekiel Elliott is in play. We have Amari Cooper a little bit hobbled. CeeDee Lamb should be a solid play in this, especially if they're going to have a lot of time. I think CeeDee Lamb could have a blow-up game here. And if Dallas is going to be up and be winning in this game, you could fully see Ezekiel Elliott getting a couple touchdowns in this game and against Atlanta as well. So I like all 3 of those guys. Blake Jarwin, I don't think he's on IR, so we're looking at Dalton Schultz potentially at tight end as well if you want to have a Dak and Schultz stack in there. I don't think that's going to be as popular as the wide receivers or Zeke, so it could be a little bit of a GPP play there to get different. Anyway, that is the number 1 game on the slate. Atlanta at Dallas with a 54.5 point Vegas total. Number 2 is Minnesota at the Los Angeles Chargers. That is a 53 point game total as of Friday evening. when this is being recorded. So keep that in mind. Let's adjust this little foam padding. Hopefully the sound quality's better with that up than it had been. Anyway, Minnesota at Los Angeles Chargers, 53-point Vegas total. Chargers 3-point home favorites. You pretty much get 3 points as being the home team anyway, so no real movement in the line there or movement one way or the other. So they're expecting this kind of be an even match. Just give the Chargers a 3-point home favorite because they are the home team. On the Minnesota side, we have number 1 in offensive pass protection. The Chargers number 19 in the pass rush on defense. This gets a little bit interesting because there is a COVID kind of running rampant in the Minnesota locker room. DJ Dozier, I believe, was hospitalized with COVID, and he had some close contacts along that offensive line. So I'm not entirely sure how well that offensive line is going to be, or how far down the depth chart they're going to be on the offensive line. So just keep that in mind. In theory, this pass protection versus the Chargers pass rush would have been good. If they're going to be out a bunch of offensive line, it might be more of a stalemate, or Minnesota might need to get the ball out a little bit quicker. The good thing for this is that leads to Conklin and the running backs getting a few more targets. Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen are also very good at getting open underneath, so they're not as affected as some wide receivers. However, keep that in mind. The Minnesota run blocking offense is number 28. The Chargers 29th in the adjusted rush yards on defense. So Minnesota might actually be able to run the ball a little bit more effectively than they're used to, especially if they're going to be out a bunch of offensive linemen. They're probably not going to want to get Kirk Cousins killed there. This could be one of those huge Dalvin Cook weeks where the Chargers are so bad in the rush yards on defense that even if Minnesota's down some offensive linemen, they could still move the ball on offense via the ground attack. So Cook I do like in this particular matchup, especially if those linemen are out. I think they're going to rush the ball even more and try to slow the game down a little bit. The Chargers very fast pace on offense. We have them number 5 in offensive pass protection. The thing is with Minnesota, though, they're number 3 in the defensive pass rush. This hasn't gone down a ton. Danielle Hunter is out with the pec injury, which kind of affects their pass rush a little bit. But they were still getting after the quarterback last week without him, so keep that in mind. The Chargers might not have as much time as they're particularly used to. However, Minnesota has pretty poor cornerback play. They're out a bunch of injuries anyway on defense, as I had said. Patrick Peterson, their best cornerback, is out, and they have been getting torched deep and often, despite the pass rush being pretty good there. So I do like Mike Williams' chance in this particular matchup, but if Minnesota is going to be getting after the quarterback, this could be the running backs, Austin Eckler, tight ends, and Keenan Allen, because he does get open underneath. So I would lean more of that route where they're going to be passing it underneath quicker just because they're going to be getting after the quarterback. So Eckler, Jared Cook, and Keenan Allen probably going to get a higher target share, but don't be surprised if you see a Mike Williams bomb somewhere in there be successful once or twice in this particular matchup. I just don't expect Williams maybe to have the volume, but he will have a ton of efficiency in this particular matchup because Minnesota's secondary is pretty poor. On the run blocking side for the Chargers, they're number 17. Minnesota dead last at number 32. So again, Eckler, he could be very efficient on the ground, even though they're a middle-of-the-pack run blocking unit. Minnesota's dead last in the adjusted rush yards on defense. So Eckler could be very efficient on the ground, and if they're going to be getting after the quarterback, he could see a monster amount of targets. So I also like Eckler in this particular matchup. He's probably going to be in a lot of my GPP lineups. So keep that in mind. This is the number 2 game on the slate at 53 points. That's Minnesota and Chargers at the Chargers. On to game number 3, which is Tampa Bay at Washington. We dropped down from 53 points to 51.5 with Tampa Bay 9.5 point road favorites against Washington. This one is a little bit interesting based on the adjusted line play report. We'll start with the away team there. Tampa Bay, number 2 in offensive pass protection, also number 2 in offensive run blocking. The weird thing is Washington also top 10. They're number 8 in the pass rush on defense and number 8 on the adjusted rush yards on defense. So Tampa Bay probably not going to have as much time as they would hope in this particular matchup to get the ball out and they're probably not going to run the ball as effectively as they're used to against Washington. I do think this is going to lead to more underneath targets for the Tampa Bay squad. Now we have Rob Gronkowski ruled out, we have Antonio Brown ruled out, and we have Chris Godwin as a game-time decision. He might not be 100% even if he does play. Evans, certainly capable of garnering a massive target share, but if Tampa Bay is going to be under siege here, that gets a little bit interesting. Washington does get after the quarterback, and they have a terrible secondary, very similar to Minnesota in that last game. Evans could certainly see plenty of targets and be efficient with them with that poor secondary. However, if Godwin plays and he's subpar, or even if he doesn't play, Tyler Johnson is probably going to see 7 to 10 targets in this particular matchup. He is somebody that you probably want to get into your cash lineups just because he's going to see a massive amount of volume in this particular matchup, and he should get that. And he's super cheap. So you should see that volume, and he should be super cheap, which is kind of what you want on those cash game options. So it's just a way to get good elsewhere, especially with the running back slate this particular week. A lot of studs and good matchups this particular week. On the run blocking side, we saw number 2 versus number 8. With Godwin out and Antonio Brown out and Gronk out, we could see the running backs there get an extended run in the pass game. Tom Brady, obviously one of those statue-type quarterbacks who's a pocket passer. We could see Fournette with a large target share in this particular matchup as well. Wouldn't be surprised to see him in between 6 and 8 targets in this particular matchup, especially if Washington is getting after the quarterback. Without those receivers, he could be looked to early and often. So keep that in mind. Fournette, one of those sneaky GPP plays in the 3rd highest game total on the slate. On the Washington side, we have their offensive pass protection at number 11, Tampa Bay 26 on the adjusted sack rate, not necessarily getting after the quarterback to sack them, and this is going to be good for Washington, especially if they're down, which Vegas is predicting here. Run blocking for Washington, number 13, Tampa Bay, number 6. That's definitely in favor of Tampa Bay. We've seen them shut down the run game quite often, so I don't particularly like Gibson this week. Washington with lots of time, Tampa Bay with the poor secondary. I could see Terry McLaurin having one of those monster 120, 150-yard, 2-touchdown games in this particular matchup. Heineke certainly viable in GPPs. Wouldn't play him in any sort of cash game, but a GPP, he does, I believe, possess some upside in this particular matchup, and we saw him do good against them last year in the playoffs. So this is a rematch of that initial playoff game last year in the NFC race. So I do like Gibson. If they're going to have a lot of time, Dyami Brown, if he's getting open against his poor secondary, would be an absolute dart throw. But he does have the talent to take him to the house. You could see him with a long bomb touchdown in this particular matchup. Ricky Seals-Jones should be in there at tight end, also in play, but don't like him nearly as much as I do McLaurin, and even as a dart throw, Dyami Brown should be in there with Curtis Samuel being out. Just a little interesting play there. Washington's kind of bottom of the barrel scraping there. And that's the number 3 game on the slate. Let's get to number 4, which is Seattle at Green Bay. And this is assuming that Aaron Rodgers plays. As of Friday night, we don't know if he's going to make it. Saturday is kind of the deadline to have him have negative COVID tests. This is assuming that he plays. If it comes out Saturday that Aaron Rodgers isn't going to play, I'm assuming this line's going to move more towards like the 44 range. So if you want to risk Aaron Rodgers maybe not playing in this, bet the under quick before that news comes out. And even so, under is a good way to be successful in a lot of things. Things go wrong in particular games with injuries, and when those happen, the unders tend to hit. Anyway, 49.5 point game total there. Seattle at Green Bay. Green Bay 3.5 point home favorites. Again, assuming Aaron Rodgers plays here. Seattle side, 31st in offensive pass protection. Green Bay, number 13 in the pass rush on defense. Seattle shouldn't have that much time to throw the ball. We get Russell Wilson coming back, which is great. The underneath routes could be going to Tyler Lockett here. Dwayne Eskridge is also coming off of the IR. I don't know how much run he's going to get in this particular matchup, but he could be somebody that is getting some of these underneath targets. But I do like Lockett in this first game with Russell Wilson coming back. On the run game side, we see Seattle number 23, Green Bay 31st in the adjusted rush yards on defense. So they're second worst, right behind the Vikings as the worst team there. And Chris Carson is out, so that could be an Alex Collins type week. Seattle might be a little bit more efficient on the ground than they're used to, and especially if Aaron Rodgers doesn't play, Collins is a sneaky good GPP pick this particular week, I believe. On the Green Bay side, we see their offensive pass protection at number 17, so middle of the road, but Seattle number 28 in the adjusted sack rate. They're not getting after the quarterback that well. Green Bay, middle of the road there. They should find themselves with a little bit extra time. If Aaron Rodgers is playing, I expect him to be a man scorned and trying to burn the earth down, so expect Devontae Adams, especially if he's got time, to have a monster week this week. Allen Lazard also in play. Seems like they had a pretty good connection before Rodgers went out. MVS is back. He's certainly their deep threat, so he could see a bomb as well. Just keep those guys in mind. On the run blocking side, we see Green Bay at number 6, Seattle number 14. Green Bay should be able to run the ball on Seattle. It's not going to be a super high mismatch there, but Aaron Jones definitely in play here. If Green Bay finds themselves up in this particular matchup, he's also a threat to get some receiving work. The only disappointing thing is seeing A.J. Dillon kind of cut into those rushing attempts. If he does and he's super efficient, that just kind of caps Aaron Jones' upside, but keep that in mind for this particular matchup. It is a 49.5 point game total. Green Bay favored by 3.5. We're going to move on to the number 5 ranked game, which there's 2 of them tied for number 5, which is Buffalo at New York, and then Jacksonville at Indianapolis. We're going to start with the Jacksonville at Indianapolis game. 47.5 point game total, so we dropped 2 points from the Seattle Green Bay game. Indianapolis is 10.5 point home favorites here against Jacksonville, and this should be an interesting matchup for the adjusted line play. Jacksonville, number 6 in the offensive pass protection. Indianapolis, number 29 in the pass rush on defense. So they're not getting after the quarterback. Their secondary also isn't that good. So Jacksonville, in theory, should be able to move the ball through the air against Indianapolis just fine. On the ground, Jacksonville, number 5 offensive run blocking, so very good. But Indianapolis, number 11 in the adjusted rush yards on defense. So they're kind of stout there. Don't expect Jacksonville to be able to move the ball particularly efficiently on the ground. And we should be getting James Robinson back, but probably in a more limited role, so I don't know what kind of volume he's going to get. And he is kind of spendy for coming off of an injury. I do think he's probably going to be pretty low rostered just because of that and because of the matchup and what the suggested game theory would be. He's not going to get a ton of attempts, but if he's getting that receiving work, he's obviously viable. But on the offensive side, this is where we should be attacking on Jacksonville. It's kind of ugly, even though their offensive line play has been good. It just hasn't translated into the box score, but Trevor Lawrence certainly would be in play here. Dan Arnold seems to be getting peppered with targets. He is an excellent tight end pick if you are running Trevor Lawrence stacks out there, but it seems like Jamal Agnew is the favorite wide receiver target, which is kind of ugly, but they still do have Laviska Shenault. And they still have Marvin Jones Jr. Maybe we see the Marvin Jones Jr. 2 or 3 touchdown blow-up game this week, right, against Indianapolis. Just keep that in mind. I do like the pass game more than the run game from Jacksonville. The offensive pass protection and run blocking has been super good for the adjusted line play report for Jacksonville. It just hasn't translated into the box score, which is kind of weird. So hopefully that fixes itself this particular week. I think this is a game that you could attack and see some pretty hefty gains in your GPPs. On the Indianapolis side, they are 10.5 point favorites there at home. Their offensive pass protection, number 13. Jacksonville, 32 in the adjusted sack rate. That means Indianapolis is going to have a lot of time to throw the ball, which probably means Pittman should have a good game. I believe T.Y. Hilton will be coming back from injury, the concussion. I could see him getting more run than we would like to see, especially if we're playing Pittman. Then they've been pretty poor as far as protecting the slot receivers, so we might see Zach Pascal get quite a few targets there too, especially if there's a lot of time. He could get open and just be one of Wentz's favorite targets there, but I do like Pittman, especially if they have a lot of time to be able to get some of those deep shots they like to give him. On the run blocking side, we have Indianapolis number 9, Jacksonville 13th. It's kind of a wash there, but we should see Jonathan Taylor do just fine against Jacksonville's defense there. They did play earlier in the year, and he was pretty successful there, pretty efficient anyway. So a lot of people, I think, are going to be on him just because of the game script theory, but this could be a spot where you kind of fade the Jonathan Taylor aspect and get into a Carson Wentz stack where maybe it's T.Y. Hilton and Pittman, and they go off. That could be certainly unique, or hopefully you get a Jonathan Taylor like screenplay that goes to the house. So you do a Wentz, Jonathan Taylor, and Pittman type stack. Just keep that in mind. Or a Zach Pascal would get really different in the GPPs. I do expect the pass game to be very efficient in Indianapolis, and I could certainly see them moving the ball via the air and scoring their touchdowns via the air in this particular matchup, especially with the 9-13 matchup there in the rush game for Indianapolis. So again, that's the number 5 ranked game this week. The other number 5, as I had said earlier, is Buffalo at the New York Jets. Again, 47.5-point game total. This is an even bigger line. Buffalo 12-point favorites on the road against the New York Jets. We have Buffalo number 7 in the offensive pass protection. The Jets number 24 in the pass rush on defense. Buffalo should have plenty of time to pass the ball against the Jets. Fully expect them to be able to move the ball through the air. Buffalo number 12 in the run blocking. The Jets number 18 in the adjusted rush yards on defense. Not a super big difference there, but Buffalo should be able to run the ball decently as well. Zach Moss is in concussion protocol. It sounds like he's on the good side of being able to play on Sunday. So with that being said, I'm not particularly interested in either him or Devin Singletary. Singletary maybe if Zach Moss is ruled out, but we're probably not going to know that until 90 minutes before game time, so keep that in mind. I do like the pass game, though. If they're going to have a lot of time, Diggs is always in play. Emmanuel Sanders is in play. We should be getting Dawson Knox back from injury. He should be good to go. I don't think he carries any sort of injury designation in this game. And if we expect Buffalo to be putting up almost 30 points, he could be coming off of an injury. I don't think a ton of people are going to be on him, and he is definitely in line for a GPP play. I think he could score you 2 touchdowns again like he had been doing. And he had been delivering explosive plays down the field as well. Being a tight end, he's probably, if he's running those intermediate routes that are 20 yards long, they're a little bit slower developing. And if they got time, you could see that developing into some nice GPP cash money for you with that. And as he comes back, Gabe Davis is somebody that you probably just want to throw on the scrap heap. He won't be used. They're going to be running more tight end personnel with Knox back in the fold. And Cole Beasley, probably somebody that not a ton of people are going to be playing in GPPs either, but just keep in mind if the pass game is going to be that successful, he is a part of it. So the next on the slate is the number 7 ranked game, which there is also 2 games tied for that, which is a 45-point game total. First, we're going to look at Philadelphia at Denver. This is one of the late games. Denver 2-point home favorites against Philly. Philadelphia number 12 in the offensive pass protection. Denver number 7 in the adjusted pass rush defense. Denver should be able to get after Philadelphia, flush out Jalen Hurts. That could lead to a few more Jalen Hurts rushing attempts, which is always good for his particular upside and floor. On the run blocking side, though, Philadelphia number 7, Denver number 23. We've seen Denver get torched by Dearness Johnson in the past. And surprisingly, Jordan Howard has been playing really well, and he's actually been, film-wise, been looking really good as well. He could be sneaky successful in this particular game against Denver. I just don't like the pace of play that Denver has. It's kind of caps the upside of everybody there, but Jordan Howard may be a little bit more viable over on FanDuel where the touchdowns are king. Just keep that in mind that it's a pretty big discrepancy there for Philadelphia in the run game. Boston Scott, I think, is going to take a back seat to Jordan Howard here. And if Philadelphia is going to be down or in closer games, Gainwell might get a little bit extra run over Boston Scott, probably just use as a breather back to take some carries off of other people's plates. Denver, the 2-point favorites there at home. Number 28 in the offensive pass protection. Philadelphia, number 9 in the defensive pass rush. Philadelphia defense certainly in play here against Denver. They should be able to get after Teddy Bridgewater. Sacks always lead to potential turnovers, and they do get you fantasy points for your defense, so keep that in mind. Denver shouldn't have a ton of time to pass the ball, which is probably going to lead to more underneath passes to the running backs and tight ends. Noah Fant and Albert Okoye-Bunam are both in play. And then Judy's kind of more the route runner savant versus Cortland Sutton. So I'd expect Judy to have a better game than Cortland Sutton in this particular matchup. I don't know what the lines are going to be for underdog fantasy or anything like that, but I would probably bet the under on Cortland Sutton this particular matchup. On the run blocking side, Denver number 26, Philadelphia number 25. That's kind of a wash, but Denver should find themselves more efficient than they're used to on the ground attack. The problem is that backfield is split pretty much down the middle, and that's capping the upside of both Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. Just keep that in mind. Neither of them is a super good play in a GPP unless you think one of them is going to get injured, and good luck predicting that. Let's head over to the other number 7 ranked game, which is Cleveland at New England, which is kind of surprising here. They are that 45-point game total. New England actually 2-point home favorites over Cleveland, which I said is a little bit surprising. We'll start with Cleveland, number 29 in the offensive pass protection. New England, number 18 in the pass rush on defense. Cleveland not used to having a ton of time. Probably going to be more of the same here with New England. It's just going to lead to more underneath routes. But the way that offense clicks or plays is kind of intermediate and deeper routes that they get to their wide receivers and kind of dumping it off to the tight ends underneath. But they like to run the ball. Unfortunately for Cleveland, they're number 3 in the offensive run blocking. New England, middle of the road at number 17 in the adjusted rush yards on defense. So Cleveland should move the ball on the ground very efficiently. The only issue is Nick Chubb out, Demetric Felton out, both of those with COVID, and then we still have Kareem Hunt out on the IR for his calf injury. So Dearness Johnson is the only show in town there at running back for Cleveland. He's going to be super popular both in cash and in tournaments just because the volume is going to be there. If he's going to be super popular in the tournaments, that's an easy fade for me, even though this is a good matchup. Maybe sprinkle him in there, but you don't want to be overweight on somebody that is that chalky. I don't know if he's really going to be able to bury you against New England. That's how I'm going to play it this week. Certainly use your best discretion there. On the New England side, we have their offensive pass protection at number 15, but Cleveland, number 4 in the defensive pass rush. They should be able to get after Mac Jones. It sounds like the NFL defenses are super angry with him twisting the ankle of Mr. Burns, and they could be getting after him. Watch out for Garrett. Myles Garrett getting after him this week. On the run blocking offensive side, New England number 16, Cleveland number 7. Similar problem with New England. It sounds like Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris they're still in concussion protocol, but it sounds like they're on the bad side of the concussion protocol. Doesn't sound like they're probably going to be able to suit up, which just means J.J. Taylor is kind of an interesting play this week. They should get him some run in this particular matchup. And Brandon Bolden, probably one of those weird guys that just has, one of those monster games randomly. But they're number 16 in offensive run blocking, as I said. It's the Cleveland number 7 in the adjusted rush yards on defense. They shouldn't be super efficient on the ground, but the notable guys at running back are out. So Bolden and J.J. Taylor, probably the biggest beneficiaries there. And if Cleveland's going to be getting after New England, expect Bolden and Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith and J.J. Taylor to be getting a lot of passes thrown their way. It sounds like Jonnu Smith might be used as a running back as well, get a few carries, so he is an interesting GPP play this particular week as those dump-offs and rushing attempts kind of go his way possibly. So keep that in mind. Again, tied for 7th there. We're going to go on to the number 9 ranked game in this week. 10 slate, 11 games. This is number 9. We got 2 following this, number 10 and number 11, but New Orleans at Tennessee. It's a 44.5 point Vegas total. Tennessee are 3-point home favorites against New Orleans. They are starting Trevor Siemian there in New Orleans, and that's where we'll start. Offensive pass protection, number 19. Tennessee, number 6 in the adjusted sack rate. They should be able to get after New Orleans. Trevor Siemian probably going to take a few sacks in this particular matchup. You're going to want the underneath passes in New Orleans. Normally that's Alvin Kamara and the tight ends, but Alvin Kamara already ruled out for this. Mark Ingram probably going to get peppered with targets. Adam Troutman also underneath the tight end should find himself with a large target volume there. Marquez Callaway, probably more the underneath guy, or Traquan Smith playing in the slot, getting possibly peppered with targets as well as the Alvin Kamara targets get dispersed elsewhere. And the run blocking side, they're number 8, Tennessee number 26. So New Orleans should be able to run the ball on Tennessee fairly well, which could be a sneaky Mark Ingram game, right? So if he's going to be getting targets and he's going to be running the ball efficiently, we could see a Mark Ingram renaissance in Week 10, which is strange just a few weeks after being traded from Houston. We could see a resurgence there in Week 10 for him. On the Tennessee side, they are number 29 in the offensive pass protection, which is very poor. Fortunately for them, New Orleans number 22 in the defensive pass rush. Sounds like Julio Jones is battling a hamstring injury. He's questionable, but it sounds like even if he does play, he's going to be less than 100%. It's just not looking good for him. A.J. Brown, not Antonio Brown, but A.J. Brown had a DNP, but it sounds like he's going to play anyway. It might have just been a maintenance day for him on Friday here. So keep that in mind. He should be the target leader there, especially if they're trying to get the ball out quick. A.J. Brown could see some of that. Otherwise, Jeremy McNichols could see some pass work too if Julio is struggling. Marcus Johnson has seemed to fill in admirably too when some of these receivers have gone down, so keep that in mind. The run blocking side, Tennessee 20th, number 1 adjusted rush yards defense though for New Orleans. Don't expect Tennessee to run the ball very well. Adrian Peterson, I would expect to have a very inefficient game here. He's a little bit old. Does look great for his particular age at 36, but this isn't a matchup that I'm looking to exploit for him, so just keep that in mind. He's kind of off my plate. McNichols is probably the running back that you're going to want to play in any sort of redraft or like Scott Fishbowl or anything like that. So that's the number 9 game. We're going to go on to number 10, which is a 44-point game total. That's Carolina at Arizona. Arizona 10-point home favorites here. We're looking at Carolina first. Number 26 in offensive pass protection, pretty poor. Arizona number 5 in the pass rush defense. So they should be getting after Carolina. They got P.J. Walker there. He is mobile. Just keep that in mind. But certainly he's a backup, and we could see some mistakes there if he's getting pressured, like we would expect with Arizona here. Arizona's defense certainly in play, and they're probably most likely one of the most expensive defenses on the slate. I didn't look up those values beforehand, but just keep in mind that they are in play. If they're going to be under siege, though, that's going to be the more underneath route. So that could be DJ Moore and certainly Christian McCaffrey, probably going to be getting peppered with targets in this particular matchup. He is on the slate again, so keep that in mind. Number 22 in the offensive run blocking for Carolina, Arizona, number 20. So they should be able to run the ball a little bit easier than they're used to in most of these matchups for Carolina. So again, Christian McCaffrey could be in play. He could see a certain efficiency in Week 10. And pretty much the only guy I'm interested in playing in Carolina is McCaffrey. Running it back on the Arizona side, we have Arizona number 18 in offensive pass protection, but Carolina number 1 in the defensive pass rush. They do get after the quarterback. And it's kind of up in the air whether Kyler is going to play or not. We did see Colt McCoy fill in for him last week and do very well. But if they're under siege, it's going to be more of the underneath routes for Arizona. Well, who is that going to be? This could be an Eno Benjamin sneaky week if he gets involved. But let's just say it's not Murray. And even if it is, his ankle is kind of bum. He's probably not going to be running a lot. He's going to be looking to dump it off. So you're going to be looking at Zach Ertz absorbing quite a few targets. A.J. Green's going to be back. Hopkins sounds like he's questionable with the hamstring injury. I don't know if he's going to play or not. I'd assume they're going to let him rest just because it's Carolina and they're bad. I assume they're going to let him rest. So we're going to be looking at Ertz and A.J. Green and Christian Kirk as the main targets there. And if they're under siege, it's going to be shorter, so you could see the running backs getting targets. That certainly could be James Conner, and I don't know if they want to necessarily give him a massive workload. So, Benjamin's a very sneaky GPP play. You could see him sneak in 4 or 5 targets and, it's 5-6 rush attempts in this particular matchup, get those 10-12 targets, and if he's really efficient with them, he could pay off in a GPP for you. On the run blocking side, they're number 18. Carolina is still top 10 at number 10. So don't expect Arizona to be very efficient on the ground. Again, that's James Conner and likely Eno Benjamin in this particular matchup. Just keep that in mind. It should be a little bit ugly there on the run blocking side, but if I'm going to play anybody, it's going to be the Arizona pass attack. And that's going to be it for the number 10, which is the second to the last total. Number 11, game number 8, as you see on YouTube channel here. Detroit at Pittsburgh, 42.5 point game total. Yuck. Fortunately for Pittsburgh, they're 8.5 point home favorites, so they got a 25.5 team implied total there for Vegas, which isn't horrendous. But on the Detroit side, we have number 21 offensive pass protection, Pittsburgh number 20 on the pass rush defense. That's kind of a wash. We'd expect the normal people in the pass attack to do what they normally do, which is essentially DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson. I fully expect them to be doing what they do. It sounds like Jamal Williams is out for this particular matchup, so keep an eye on Jamar Jefferson and what he does in this particular matchup. I think he's the direct handcuff right now to Swift, and he should get probably in between 6 to 10 attempts or opportunities in this matchup against Pittsburgh. On the run blocking side, it's kind of ugly for Detroit. Number 25 in the offensive run blocking. Pittsburgh top 10 at number 9. So 25 versus 9. Detroit won't be running the ball very well on Pittsburgh. And if they're going to be down, that's fine anyway. Expect them to be passing the ball. It's probably going to lead to a massive amount of targets for Swift and Hawkinson. And I'd be very curious to see what they do on the wide receiver aspect coming out of the bye. You might see St. Brown, the rookie, just peppered with massive amount of targets. I am very curious to see how that shakes out, but definitely a GPP dart throw. A lot of times these teams, especially as they get into the mid or latter part of the season, when they have that bye, they start to install a game plan that heavily goes around these rookies and featuring them finally as they kind of grasp the offense and what the NFL is all about. They start game planning around some of their rookies, especially if they're one of the top options on their offense. So keep that in mind. Amon-Ra St. Brown could be very sneaky dart throw GPP in this particular matchup. Unfortunately, it's one of the lowest in the slate, so wouldn't expect a whole ton, but possibility. That's why he's a dart throw. Pittsburgh side, they are number 9 in offensive pass protection. Detroit number 15 in the defensive pass rush. They were one of the higher ones. They've just been kind of dropping off a cliff here recently. So Pittsburgh should find themselves with a decent amount of time to pass. It looks like Claypool has been ruled out already. So Deontay Johnson's pretty much the only receiver in town besides James Washington. I fully expect it to funnel essentially from Deontay Johnson to Najee Harris to Pat Freiermuth. Those are going to be the 3 people that I want from that Pittsburgh pass attack. On the run blocking side, we have Pittsburgh number 30, Detroit number 22 in the adjusted rush yards on defense. Again, Pittsburgh not very efficient on the ground, but Najee gets tons of volume. He's always in play. Not particularly Sure, where you would want to play him, probably better in cash than the GPP lineup because he is spendy, but Detroit's giving it up on the ground to a lot of the running backs anyway. Just keep that in mind. Najee should have a ton of not only targets, but a ton of volume on the ground as well. I do expect Pittsburgh to be up on Detroit, so could be a Najee Harris top 3 running back week there as well, despite some of these better plays like Eckler and Dalvin Cook and Christian McCaffrey being in spots where they should find themselves being very efficient. Anyway, folks, that's the 11th game out of 11 on the slate this particular week. Hopefully you learned some stuff and you can use this as another tool in your tool belt to go with all the other information you're getting in the week, and we can go out and win some money. If you use this and you find yourself winning some money, certainly send me a tweet at Todzilla1337 and let me know that I helped you out and helped you win some money. That would be fantastic. Give the YouTube channel a subscribe. Go over to Podbean, or if you're already on there, follow us on Podbean. It's Zilla Fantasy Elite, both on YouTube and on Podbean. And then on Twitter, it's at Zilla Fantasy for the channel. Thanks for watching, folks. This is, again, week 10, and hopefully we can go win some money together, folks. See ya until week 11. Bye.